Good morning. Welcome to the MVMMS Veterans Memorial Middle School Veterans Day Assembly. Right. At this time, I'll ask all students to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be followed by the National Anthem, which will be sung by Megan Botter, 7B, and Kelsey Rowe, 7B. But first, the presentations of our color by Charlie Stanton in the 8th grade. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the Star Spangled Banner sung by Megan Botter and Kelsey Rowe. Please be seated. Special thank you to Megan and Kelsey, and also to Charlie. Next, the MVMMS Veterans Memorial Middle School Band, conducted by Mr. Robucci, will play a patriotic trilogy. Special thank you to the middle school band. Next, the patriotic salute will be sung by the Mayoral Veterans Middle School Select Chorus under the direction of Miss Piper, accompanied by Olivia Rittenberg on piano. The MVMMS Select Chorus. Big hand for the middle school select chorus. Gives me great pleasure to introduce an 8th grade student, Victoria Glynn from Team 8C, who will deliver her student address. Victoria.
Good morning. Monday, November 11th is Veterans Day. Students have a day off from school, which most of you might spend with friends, sleeping in, relaxing. But I also hope we acknowledge the meaning of this holiday. So what is Veterans Day? Why and how do we celebrate it? And who are the veterans? Veterans Day, originally called Armistice Day, was meant to celebrate the end of World War I. In November of 1919, President Woodrow Wilson legalized this holiday with these words: "To us in America, the reflections of Armistice Day will be filled with the solemn pride and heroism of those who died in the country's service, and with the gratitude for the victory, both because of the thing which it had freed us, and because of the opportunity it has given America to show her sympathy with peace and justice in the Council of Nations." Ever since 1954, it has become a day dedicated to honor the hard work, integrity, and courage of all veterans. Veterans Day is a holiday where Americans honor and thank all who served in the military. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines a veteran as a former member of the armed forces, but they are so much more. Soldiers have risked their lives in order to protect our country's freedom. They not only fight with weapons, but with their lives. Those who do not actively fight in war have been away from home serving our country, and their sacrifice is greatly appreciated as well. We live in a country where everyone is equal, no matter what religion you believe, your race, or gender. Women have the same rights as men. People get to choose what they want to do in life. In some other countries, you would lead one life if you were born a boy, and a different one if you were born a girl. People may be segregated, told what to do, what to say, and what to believe. But the USA is a free country. Our military fights for our freedom, equality, and society. Please take time on Monday to remember those who served in the armed forces. So what can we, as 6th, 7th, and 8th graders do? Go to a parade, visit a memorial, or, if there is a veteran in your family, ask about his or her service. In some way, acknowledge the hard work of these retired soldiers. We sometimes take for granted all the things that they have made possible. I'd like to thank our veterans here today and all over America. Thank you so much.
Victoria Glynn, Team 8C. Next, Green Beret, written by Sergeant Barry Sandler, will be sung by Laurie DeSelme, 8C, Brianna Prevalone, 8A, Samantha Farrow, 8A, Caitlin Kenny, 8A, Lauren Riley, 8A, Ashley Vogt, 8C, Sarah Jarina, 8A, Catherine Sweet, 8B, Katie Mead, 8A, Emma Winey, 8C, Selma Halsuni, 8A, Tara O'Shea, 8C, and Evanen Akambi, 8B, under the direction of Ms. Piper. The Green Beret, accompanied by Olivia Rittenberg on piano.
Wings upon their chests.
that rendition of the Green Beret. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce the Melrose Veterans Memorial Middle School Orchestra under the direction of Mr. Miller, who will play a trilogy, America the Beautiful, who will play actually America the Beautiful and Anchors Away. The Middle School Orchestra. the MVMMS Veterans Memorial Middle School Orchestra. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce an 8th grade boy by the name of Calvin White from Team 8B, who will deliver his Veterans Day address. Calvin White.
As I sat down to begin to write this, I realized just how little I truly knew about the sacrifices our nation's veterans have made. Sure, everyone knows they go to war for us, defend our country, defend our rights, and that is no small feat. What people fail to acknowledge, however, are the way these sacrifices affect us as we go through our daily lives. Every day, without our knowing, people, real people with kids and families and friends, leave their normal lives behind to make way for a very different life of strife, war, and loss. Not knowing if they will ever see their old lives again, these brave warriors venture to unknown places, risking death in order to serve their country, preserve human rights, and stand up for others who can't stand up for themselves. Unfortunately, though, the world is not always a peaceful place. Throughout history, evil has been allowed to grow through the idleness of the uninvolved. A few generations ago, Europe and much of the world was cast into the shadow of war when Germany and Japan began to spread tyranny under the guise of building their empires. At first, many governments were reluctant to get involved because they weren't directly impacted. But through this inactivity, the war spread to the point where it was almost too late. Fortunately, there are those who are willing to put a stop to this evil. Veterans are these people, people whose sense of duty will not allow them to ignore abuse. They will not turn away from danger, they will face it head on. They will do the difficult things that no one may want to have to do, but truly need to be done. And they make incredible sacrifices in order to do so. Loss of life, loss of limb, and loss of friends, to name a few, all in the name of the innocent and oppressed. The sacrifices made by our veterans truly influence us today and grant us the many freedoms we have. Without the courage of the heroes behind me, kids, adults, and teens like me wouldn't be able to have half the luxuries we have today, or do many of the things we do now. So this weekend, when you get the chance, take some time to remember the great soldiers, alive or not, whose sacrifices allow you to do so many things, even the little things you take for granted. Thank you.
Chief Calvin White. Special thank you to Calvin. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce a group of girls who will be singing Traveling Soldiers, sung by the Dixie Chicks. It will be sung on this stage today by Emma Winey, Team 8C, Selma Al-Suni, Team 8A, and Evanan Akambi, Team 8B, under the direction of Ms. Parker. Traveling Soldier.
Sat down in a booth, cafe there, gave his order to a girl with a bow in her hair. He's a little shy, so she gives him a smile. Then he said, would you mind sitting down for a while and talking to me? I'm feeling a little low. She said, I'm off in an hour and I know where we can go. So we went down and we sat on the pier. Said, I bet you got a boyfriend, but I don't care. I got no one to send a letter to. Would you mind if I sent one back here to you? I cried, never gonna hold
special thank you to Emma, Selma, and Emily. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce a true friend of Mayoral Veterans Memorial Middle School, Massachusetts State Senator Kathleen Clark. Please welcome her.
Good morning. We're going to do it one more time. Good morning. You all have been doing a wonderful job. The music, it is always difficult to follow the student speakers, but a big hand for Calvin and Victoria. Wonderful job. And thank you for having me again this year. To Mayor Dolan, members of the Board of Aldermen, Ryan McLean, our Veteran Services Director, our school leaders, all of our educators, the students, and especially our veterans and their families. Today we come together to honor those who served our country, to remember those who paid the ultimate price, giving their own lives for our freedom, and to thank the families and the friends of those who served and are serving today. To our veterans, thank you for your service and your sacrifice. I hope you feel our deep pride and our gratitude. And while I know that many of you feel the weight of the loss that you carry for those who did not make it home, your bravery inspires us. It reminds me of a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt. She said, "You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really look fear in the face." And over 21 million men and women in this nation have lived that strength, courage, and confidence through their service. And there are over 388,000 veterans living right here in Massachusetts, in our community of Melrose. We are so proud of our veterans. And that quote also reminds me that this is the first Veterans Day since the terrible bombings at the Boston Marathon last April. And we saw that same courage on display that day when our first responders, medical professionals, even spectators along the route rushed to the destruction to help the fallen. That day, and in the months since, a city and a region have come together to care and support the victims and to honor those who lost their lives. And we remember the immense bravery of those continuing to recover from their devastating injuries as they work so hard to heal and move forward. What does that spirit, displayed by our veterans and by those heroes at the Boston Marathon, mean to us? And that's what I want to think about today. First, it means we must take care of each other. For our veterans, we owe them and their families the services, the benefits, the health care, and the support that they need and deserve. And I thank Ryan McLean and his colleagues across the state for the work they do providing that to our veterans. But what about all of you? What about the students sitting here today? In your lives, I hope that our veterans encourage you in your everyday actions and words to answer that call, to step up when others need you, and to be courageous. It can be small but meaningful gesture, reaching out to a friend who's having a bad day, offering to help an older person at the grocery store, and my favorite, helping out your parents before they even ask. Or it can be a larger commitment to our Melrose community, to service, to actions, to causes that you care about. We have a wonderful example of that dedication here in all the students who have helped with the trips to DC and now are involved in Operation Gettysburg. We thank you for your leadership. And I hope on Veterans Day, we will all pause to be thankful and express those thanks in our words and our actions. And we can ask ourselves, what can I do? What do I care about? And how can I help? And let me close with a quote from President John F. Kennedy. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. Let's carry forward that spirit in honor of all our Melrose and American veterans. Thank you so much.
State Senator Kathleen Clark. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce State Representative, former student at Melrose Veterans Memorial Middle School, Paul Broder.
Good morning. It is my pleasure and my honor to be back, not in the physical building where I went to school, but in the location where I went to school, in a community that I grew up in, and it's given so much to me over the years, and I know is giving so much to you, the students here at Melrose Memorial Middle School. And it is an honor to be your representative in the House of Representatives in Boston, and understand that I bring with me the greetings and the appreciation and the good wishes of all 160 members of the House of Representatives. Most importantly, it is humbling to be able to stand here before you, in front of the men and women behind me, the everyday heroes, the folks for which we honor and celebrate this day. Army, Navy, Air Force, the Marines, the Coast Guard, the National Guards, career folks, reservists, all folks who in their own way, shape, or form answered the call, that had that sense of duty and dedication to our country and the principles on which our country was founded. And in particular, we want to remember their families today, because anyone who serves does not serve by themselves, as some of you in the audience know, who have mothers or fathers, or brothers or sisters, or aunts or uncles, or other family members who have answered that call, who have left home, who have served the country, and have come home to our appreciation and our thanks. And we don't just honor them for their service, but we recognize in the folks behind me that their service didn't end when they came home, or they retired, or they stopped their active military commitment. These are also the folks that are the doctors and the lawyers, the aldermen, like Alderman Forbes, Bill Forbes, my good friend, is a Vietnam veteran who's going to be succeeded by his son, Scott Forbes. That service, that idea of commitment to community doesn't end. And in particular, I know there are people in the faculty right here at Melrose Memorial Middle School who also serve. And we thank them as well. And we understand and appreciate the commitment that they have made. And I gotta admit, in some respects, I feel a little bit strange standing up here speaking to you, because Veterans Day assemblies like this are very often, they're kind of a cut. They're of a type where folks like myself, or Mayor Dolan, or Senator Clark step up and speak, and we didn't serve. And it's a little bit unusual that the folks behind me, the folks who did the work, who made the sacrifices, much like they did during their service, kind of sit silently. And we appreciate that. But what I want you all to do is think about, much like Senator Clark said, how can you honor what they have done for us? You can listen to them. You can learn their stories. You can hear about what motivated them, what scared them, quite frankly, what they got out of the experience, and what they hope it means to you. You also can honor them and their families by, in addition to recognizing their patriotism, their sense of duty, their service and their sacrifice, you can recognize their dedication to a shared principle of serving something bigger than yourselves and your individual interests, or a devotion to the common good. So when you're in your day-to-day affairs, when you're at this school, you honor them by trying your best, by learning, by recognizing the service of the men and women who teach you, who take care of you during the day, and by recognizing and helping each other. You have that same shared sense of purpose that the men and women behind me recognized when they served their country. You should take that home. You should recognize that in each other. You can all do great things individually. You all have talents and abilities that will make yourselves, and more importantly, make your friends better people. Help each other. Recognize that your talents and abilities are meant to be shared, that you can lift up your friends, that you can help this community and this country, because you stand on the shoulders of the men and women behind me. Based on their sacrifices and their sense of duty, you have the ability and the opportunity to do great things. Now, I want to close with sharing with you an experience I had. I recently had the opportunity to go to Berlin, Germany, and learn a little bit about how they educate folks. And we met with various officials and things like that. We also learned a little bit about the history of Berlin. After World War II, Berlin became a divided city. And the Soviet Union, at one point, initiated a blockade of Berlin, hoping that the Allies would give up on Berlin and would walk away and would leave it to the Soviet Union. And it was a very challenging situation because America and its allies had a decision to make. Should we go to war or should we lose Berlin? And they came up actually with a third alternative, and they made a decision that they were going to airlift supplies to the people of Berlin. We were going to make a commitment to them and their freedom. And it was an amazing commitment because over 11 months, 277,000 flights went into Berlin with basic resources, food, coal, supplies, and interestingly candy, so that the citizens of Berlin could stay free. There were flight crews that wouldn't even leave their planes. They would have ground personnel reload supplies where they stayed in the plane and ate, and they would take off again. Day in, day out, hour after hour, night after night. That commitment never wavered. And ultimately, after those 11 months, the Soviets gave up on that blockade because they saw the commitment of our country and our military to keep that city free. In 1961, a wall went up because so many of the folks in East Berlin, which was under Soviet control, the East German government, were fleeing to West Berlin because of the promise of that freedom and opportunity. And in reaction, President Kennedy went to Berlin to communicate an important message to those people. He said, we are all Berliners. He made that commitment. He made those folks understand. He gave them hope. And we never wavered in that commitment. President Reagan traveled to Berlin and challenged the premier of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev. He said, tear down this wall, Mr. Gorbachev. And shortly thereafter, to frankly a peaceful revolution, that wall came down. It was the sustained commitment of many, many men and women over generations to keep Berlin free and to sustain that hope for united Germany. And I tell you that because, I think some of the folks, we will hear where these folks served and what branch of the armed services and what conflict. And we'll talk about the Cold War. And that's really what the Cold War was all about. It was keeping that commitment. And I share the story with you because when I was in Berlin, we had the opportunity to meet with a gentleman who was an educator. He ran the education for the state of Berlin. And he spoke to us. He didn't speak particularly good English, and we used a translator for a little while, but then at the end of his remarks, he wanted to say something. And he turned to us, and in somewhat hot English, he said that he grew up in Berlin. He'd been in Berlin all his life. And he was there as a young boy when the blockade occurred. He was there when the wall went up. And his simple message, and he teared up when he said it, was thank you. The people of Germany and the people of Berlin will never ever forget the commitment that our country made to those people at that time. So for those of you who served in the Cold War and have made that commitment over the last 50, 60, 70 years, I want to tell you on behalf of the gentleman I met in Germany and pass on his thanks to you. It's not just the people of the United States that value your service. It's people who want to be free all over the world that value the commitment you've made and the example that you've set with your service. So thank you very much on behalf of him and on behalf of the great country.
Thank you, Representative Miller. Gives me great pleasure to introduce the mayor of our great city, Mayor Rob Dolan.
Morning, everybody. Well, I just want to start by saying, and I think I can speak with all the people back at me, how proud I am and they are of each one of you. You guys look so wonderful from where we're sitting, and every time I come here, and it's been a long time, I'm so incredibly proud of each and every one of you and what you do every day, and I hope you know that. The former President of the United States, one of our great presidents, Teddy Roosevelt, gave a speech called Citizenship in America. And it is one of my favorite quotes, and I'd like to share it with you right now in one of my favorite speeches. He said, "It is not the critic that counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do these deeds, who knows great enthusiasms and great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who knew neither victory or defeat." Those men and women in the arena are the veterans of the city of Melrose and on the stage. They range from young men and women, 21, 22, who remember their high school graduation, to Alice, who's living in her 101st year. They fought Hitler, they fought communism, they've guarded our shores, they fought terrorism. They are the men and women in the arena who, instead of complaining or thinking how things should be in the world, decided to volunteer and change the world and change those things. Today we thank them, but we also recommit with Brian McLean, Bob Driscoll, and the members of city government to commit today that although we thank them, if they are hungry, we will feed them. If they are without homes, we shall find them shelter. If they are without medical care, we will help them. If they want to work but can't find a job, we will do our best to train them and find them work. If their children and their wives suffer because the scars of battle don't always end on the battlefield, but here at home, we shall help them and get them the help they need. We will do everything we can to try to repay the debt that we owe them. So it is my hope that we will succeed in this endeavor and do our very best, as President Roosevelt said. to respect those men and women in the arena, and it is my hope that you will continue, as I know you will, to make them proud and to thank them for the service that they have given to our country and to you. May God bless America.
Mayor Rob Miller. Thank you. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce the Superintendent of the Melrose Public Schools, Superintendent Cindy Taymor.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. It is my second year in which I have the distinct pleasure to stand here and welcome our guests on behalf of the Melrose Public Schools. But more importantly, I have to tell you, every time I am at this event, I am so proud of all of you. You just show off the best about Melrose Public Schools. So please give yourselves a hand. I want to thank Mr. Brown, the staff, and the students of MVMMS for again organizing this wonderful event. I want to thank our PTO parents who are here behind the scenes cooking and preparing the wonderful breakfast. And I want to thank our veterans, not only for their service to our country, but for giving their time to our students so that you may better understand the history and sacrifices many Americans have made on behalf of the next generation. We teach history in our classes. Our students see war through books, movies, and from your superintendent, too many video games. But it is not until they meet our veterans do they really hear what war is about. It is through this oral history that our children truly understand the personal sacrifices our men and women in the armed services have made. It is one thing to learn secondhand about a war such as World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Gulf War I, Gulf War II, Afghanistan, and Iraq. However, it is a very different understanding that is achieved when our students meet our veterans and realize that real, live human beings put their own interests and their own safety aside for the sake of others and our country. So on behalf of the Melrose Public Schools, I want to thank you for your continuing contribution to our students and for your help in raising the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Taymor. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Lieutenant Jacob Buckman from Hanscom Air Force Base in Massachusetts. Lieutenant Buckman.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for that warm welcome. I appreciate it. So today, I just want to say thanks. This is indeed a very special occasion. I've just been blown away. It's my first time seeing this, and it's just been outstanding. I'm here because this Monday, November 11th, we will recognize the veterans of this great nation. For more than 230 years, our veterans have underwritten our freedom by their duty, honor, and selfless service. To best understand how we arrived where we are today, to have the facilities that we have, all the choices that we can make in our life, we must understand what our country has endured. Our forefathers, including Jefferson, Adams, Washington, Franklin, and others, banded together in those colonies at the exact moment in time to build the framework upon which our nation was born. Seemingly all odds were against the group of fledgling colonists with sparse resources and even less of an army. But the tenacity and entrenched ideals of a free people created a force of nature that even the colossal British Empire could not weather. The internal struggle that unraveled this country to the point of civil war was mended by the people who fought under the wisdom and leadership of President Lincoln. And when the United States were thrust into World War II by the attack on Pearl Harbor, men young and old traveled across oceans to fight and eliminate tyranny. Even today, men and women are on the front lines, on the other side of this world, battling terrorism, defending our country. They've conquered seemingly insurmountable adversaries, and yet those veterans are people no different than you or I. Past and present, they've had friends, families, goals, and ambitions. Although they had different backgrounds, each and every one shared something in common: the embodiment of duty to this nation and its protection at all costs. We recognize that all our veterans have given something of themselves to this country. Some have even given what is held most precious, their lives. Take a moment and think of something you cherish, something that isn't necessarily guaranteed in other parts of this world. The fact that we are all here, given this opportunity of an education and to choose our ambitions is just astounding. The fact that someday if you say, I want to be a pilot, you have the freedom to go and pursue that ambition. It is imperative to understand that the men and women who have served our nation played a critical role to allow us to live our lives freely. Let us always be humbled by and grateful to those Americans who suffered and sacrificed, for those service members who stood guard in peacetime, and to those who have seen the terror and inhumanity of combat. And of course, to those who paid the ultimate price, defending our Constitution of the United States. So as Monday rolls around, if you happen to take some time and reflect, and if you're thinking to yourself, what else can I do to show my appreciation? Embody the freedoms in which our country stands for. Be independent in your thought and set your goals and ambitions high. Utilize all of the resources this country provides and be the best you can be. This shows the utmost acknowledgement to our veterans' dedication by not squandering all they have worked for. Thank you again for your time and attention today. I truly appreciate this opportunity to talk with you all. Thank you.
Lieutenant Buckman. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce the veterans that joined our school family today so that we could honor Veterans Day. I'll read the names at the end. I know that you will give them an MVMMS welcome. On stage today are Dan Hawkins, Army, who fought in the Iraqi Freedom. Ralph Archibald, Navy, World War II. Colonel Dan Hawkins, Army Reserve, active duty. Eugene Baldy, Merchant Marine, World War II. John Bernardi, Air Force, Korean War, Vietnam. Joe Bondano, Marine Corps, Korean War. Alan Burke, Army, Vietnam era. Jake Buckman, Air Force, active duty. Murray Bernstein, Air Force, Korean War. Alex Kant, Army, Vietnam area. William Carney, Navy, Korean War. Scott Carroll, who was the father of a Veterans Memorial Middle School student. Marine Corps, Iraqi Freedom. Mike Kalisa, Navy, Vietnam War. Bernard Sincata, Navy, World War II. Alice Consalvo, Ladies Auxiliary, past, present, 101 years old. William Copeland, Navy, World War II. James Crowell, Army. Dr. Patrick Daly, Navy, Vietnam. James Day, Navy, Korean and Vietnam. Tom Dilly, Army, World War II. Eric Denoto, father of a Melrose Middle School student, Army, Iraq and Afghanistan. Joe Doucette, Navy, Korean War. Ray Driscoll, Army, Vietnam and Desert Storm. Robert Driscoll, Air Force, Army, Iraq and Desert Storm. Roderick E. Eddy, Navy, World War II. Tom Ellers, Air Force, Korean War, Vietnam and Desert Storm. Richard Flanagan, Navy, World War II. William Fondulis, Army, Korean War. Bill Forbes, Army, Vietnam War. Scott Forbes, Air Force, Iraqi Freedom and Afghanistan. Anthony Fugolini, Army, World War II. Robert C. Fuller, Army, World War II. Lizette Garcia, Air Force, active duty. Robert Garvey, Army, Vietnam. Helen Gregorio, Gold Star Wives. Peter Janino, Army, Korean War. Mark Golub, Army, Vietnam War. Dave Goodhue, Coast Guard, Vietnam War. Lawrence Goyette, Army, World War II. Clifford Graves, Marine Corps, Korean War. Lee Graves, Air Force, Korean War. Leo Green, Army, served in the 1940s. Jerry Greer, former teacher at our school, Coast Guard, Iraqi Freedom. Carl Giffel, Navy, Korean and Vietnam War. Robert Harrison, Army, Vietnam War. Alex Henshaw, parent of a Mayoral Veterans Memorial Middle School student, Navy. Tim Hodge, Navy, Vietnam War. Alex Kant, Army, Vietnam War. Jim Kelly, Air Force, Korean War. Glenn Cruz, Army, Vietnam War. Philip Kokura, Army, Korean War. Chester Coons, Navy, Cold War. John Lowry, Air Force, World War II. Joe Leary, Army, World War II. Ralph Levy, Army, World War II. Robert Layden, Air Force, Vietnam War. George F. Lovett, Army, Cold War. Matthew Lowry, Coast Guard, Desert Storm. Thomas Ma, Navy, Korean War. David Mahoney, Air Force, Vietnam War. Jim Maine, Army, Desert Storm. Colonel Arthur Marcotti, Navy and Air Force, World War II, Korean War, and Vietnam. Joshua Markovitz, Army, National Guard. Robert Martin, Navy, Cold War and Vietnam. Peter Mason, Army, Vietnam War. Roger Mastrolillo, Air Force, Vietnam War. David McCall, our drama club technician, Army, Vietnam War. Tom McCarthy, former guidance counselor, Army, Vietnam War. Charles McGuire, Army, Korean War. Paul McKnight, 8th grade teacher, Army, National Guard, peacetime. Ryan McLean, Army, Afghanistan and Iraq. Peter Mason, Army, Vietnam. John Maglarini, Navy, World War II. Robert Mercer, Air Force, Korean War. Joseph Millett, Army, Cold War and Vietnam. Mike Nocidi, Air Force, Vietnam. Gerald Peavy, Navy, Vietnam. Robert Peters, Army, Korean War. Peter Pistorino, Army, Korean War. Richard Pitts, Army, Korean War. Chris Raditz, Navy. Mary Rosati, Civil Star Mother. Ronald Rosati, Army, Cold War and Grenada. Paul Rossi, Marine Corps, Vietnam. George Rowe, Army, 1960s. Mark Samuelson, Army, Iraqi Freedom. Joseph Sakato, Marine Corps, Iraqi Freedom. Irvin Smallins, Army, World War II. Robert Sweeney, Army, Vietnam. Frank Tambini, Navy, Korean War. Ray Thompson, Navy, World War II. Peter Treglini, Air Force, Vietnam. Edwin Vickery, Army and Air Force, World War II. Sean Ward, Air Force, active duty. And Karen Well, Army, Desert Storm. Welcome these veterans to our school. Thank you, veterans. Lucy Fleming. A few years ago, we challenged Mayoral Veterans Memorial Middle School to team up with veterans and take World War II veterans to Washington, D.C. on one last mission to see their memorial. Operation Resolve was formed, and this school took World War II veterans to Washington, D.C. Last year, the challenge went out, and Operation Thank You completed its mission. And last year's group of students brought Vietnam veterans to Washington, D.C. to see their memorial. This year, 17 students banded together to form Operation G Club, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about their mission.
When Johnny comes marching home again.
The Civil War was fought 150 years ago.
When Johnny comes marching home again.
A record of those who fought must not be forgotten.
When Johnny comes marching home again.
The middle school's Operation G Club is devoted to remembering veterans.
When Johnny comes marching home.
The G stands for Gettysburg, a battle and turning point in the Civil War. During the summer, Operation G Club students read Killer Angels, a novel of the Civil War. Students and local Melrose veterans are working together to remember those who served. On May 8th, 2014, veterans, along with Operation G Club students, will travel to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. They will stand on that historic site and pay tribute to those fallen Civil War veterans.
When Johnny comes marching home.
Each of the 17 Operation G Club students has adopted a local Civil War veteran to research. Their research projects are as follows. Evan remembers Andrew Chase, infantry. Isabella remembers John Corr, 1st Company, pictured behind me. Molly remembers Charles H. Barnes, infantry. Olivia remembers Joseph S. Emerson, 7th Company during the Civil War. Courtney remembers J. Frank Seavey, infantry. Sierra remembers Alfred Hawken, infantry. Delia remembers Charles L. Robinson, infantry. Emma remembers O.E. Mays, Civil War artillery. Anna remembers George H. Hill, infantry. Melissa remembers Edward Bradbury, infantry. Grace remembers Civil War veteran Charles Tower, infantry. Holly remembers Moses S. Page, infantry. Lauren remembers Frank E. Orchard, infantry. Maddie remembers George W. Simpson, 4th Company. Jade remembers Charles H. Fuller, cavalry. Kyle remembers George Campbell, infantry. And Emma remembers William Monroe, artillery. Gives me great pleasure to introduce the Melrose Veterans Memorial Middle School Operation G Club. The G stands for Gettysburg. And Ryan McLean, a veteran, and Bob Driscoll, a veteran, who have been working together to make Operation G a reality in May of this year. Please welcome the Operation G Club to our stage.
Before I offer some brief comments, I just want to show of hands from everyone in the crowd who knows or has a family member who's a veteran. It's pretty impressive. My homework for you guys is to thank them this weekend. All right? Is that doable? All right, so Operation Gettysburg, this is our most ambitious of the operation trips, and it follows in the footsteps, as Mr. Brow said, of Operation Resolve and Operation Thank You. So these 17 young ladies from the school will donate their time and their talents and their efforts to raise money and research Melrose's involvement in the Civil War. This year's trip is unique. It's open to veterans of all eras, and I hope some of the ladies and gentlemen behind us will join us. We will visit the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia, the Gettysburg battlefield, and the September 11th Memorial in New York City. Not only will veterans get to experience these sites with our middle schoolers, but proceeds from our fundraising will be put towards the restoration of Civil War monuments around the city. So our theme this year is we never, ever forget the sacrifices of our veterans, no matter how much time has passed since their service. So ladies, as a veteran, I'm challenged to do better than the men and women who served before me. So are you ready to do the same with the operation trip? I know you will.
Good morning. Last year, the Veterans Advisory Board, we teamed up with the Historical Society and the Melrose Public Library to commemorate the 150th anniversary of the Civil War, which led into us changing the trip from Washington to Gettysburg. Last year, when we went over to the library to set up a display, we noticed that the library is one of our collection points for flags that need to be retired. And next to their copier, they had an old copier paper box that people could dispose of their flags. So we saw that and said, geez, we should come up with something nicer to put the symbol of our freedom in when it's getting ready to be retired. So we approached Mr. Greer and the students here at the Melrose Veterans Memorial Middle School to see if they could help us out. And we talked to Mr. Greer, and right away he said, I'm on it. So we brought him some lumber, and he put together, with the help of the students, 4 of these collection boxes, which we just had them painted, and we're going to be putting some patriotic decals on them, and they're going to be distributed. One's going to be at the library, one will be at each VFW, and then one will be outside Orion's office in City Hall. So it's a much nicer container to put our flags that need to be retired in. So we want to thank all of you for helping us in that project, and we especially want to recognize Mr. Greer, and I know he's in the back there, if he could come forward for me. As you all know, Mr. Greer retired last year, but he was gracious enough to come back this year so we could honor him. A lot of you know just Mr. Greer as being in the tech room. Some of you probably think he lived in there, okay? But Mr. Greer had a whole nother life. Part of that life was wearing the uniform of the United States military. So Mr. Greer, he enlisted in June 1976 as a seaman recruit, and he was soon advanced to Petty Officer 3rd Class in the Boatswain's Mate rating in the United States Coast Guard Reserve. At the U.S. Coast Guard Station Point Allerton and Boston, Senior Chief worked as a boat rescue coxswain and officer of the day. He, like many of us, was activated after September 11th, and he was sent to the command center, United States Coast Guard Group Boston, working as a search and rescue controller. In 2002, he was again recalled to active duty in support of Operation Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom. He worked as a supervisor at the Waterside Security Unit in Wilmington, North Carolina. They were charged with the security of military loadouts. They were ocean-going ships loaded with munitions and equipment from the Army's Fort Bragg and the Marine Corps' Camp Lejeune, all heading overseas to the Middle East. In 2003, with a background as a teacher, Senior Chief Greer was transferred to the 5th District Small Boat Training Team based out of Portsmouth, Virginia. The team traveled to Coast Guard units, training new crewmen for security boat duty. Upon demobilization, he resumed reserve duties as Tactical Control Officer for the liquefied natural gas tanker transits with the United States Coast Guard Group Boston. Working with the United States Coast Guard, Mass State Police, Boston Police, and the Fire Department assets during inbound and outbound tanker movements in Boston Harbor. Senior Chief Greer retired as a Sector Duty Officer, United States Coast Guard, Sector Boston Command, after 32 years of service.
We're introducing a new program this Veterans Day. It's called the Stars and Stripes Salute. And this was the good work of Mayor Dolan's summer internship program by a student from here named Patrick Driscoll, who graduated last year. So with the Stars and Stripes Salute, you can honor a veteran, family member, coworker, teacher, team, or friend by flying a flag in their honor over a City of Melrose building, veteran memorial, park, or school. The details will be on the city's website, or you can contact my office. And the very first person to be honored under this new program is Mr. Jared Greer. We will be flying a flag in front of the middle school in honor of the work he's done to support our nation, city, schools, and veterans. So please join me in a round of applause as we honor him. So my good friend and Korean War veteran, Mr. Kelly, is going to go with a couple of the young ladies from the Operation Gettysburg group to fly that flag at the middle school today.
At our Veterans Day assemblies and at our Memorial Day assemblies, we always also put some flowers in front of the memorials on our campus. Outside of our school is the Michael Hughes Memorial near the courtyard between the middle school and the high school. Michael was a student a number of decades ago who passed away while he was a student of cancer. We will put a flower at his memorial stone. Also, there is a memorial rock beside his memorial. It's for the Great War of World War I. And one of these flowers will go across the street to the newly restored Memorial Knoll. Mrs. Megan's students will help put those flowers at those memorial sites as well. So girls, if you could take these two Mrs. Megan's students. Congratulations to Mr. Greer. We end all of our memorial assemblies with a bugle blown with taps. Today it's going to be performed by Peter Wyson from Team 8Z and Caleb Zimmerman from Team 8A. I ask you all to stand for a moment of silence. During this moment, please remember all our veterans and take the time tomorrow to think about, on Monday, to think about those that serve. A moment of silence, please. Please be seated. The Melrose Veterans Memorial Middle School Band will play the March of the Armed Forces. Please wait till our veterans are off the stage before we go to our classes. The middle school band. Girls that helped the veterans get on stage, please meet on the left-hand side of the stage to assist them to their cars. 8th graders, you may go up to the 4th floor. Thank you very much. 8th graders.